Hello, I am Ronald Ponder, the founder of Art Against Racism. I am here with my friend, colleague, and collaborator, Eileen Green, who is the executive director of West Windsor Arts Council. And we are here together to discuss our exhibit, Manifesting Beloved Community, which is currently running at the West Windsor Arts Council in West Windsor, New Jersey. We're here to talk to our esteemed juror, artist Sonia E. Barrett. And Isla, will you introduce Sonia for us, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Reinald. It's really a pleasure to be here today talking with Sonia and about the exhibition Manifesting Beloved Community. Just to say a few words about Sonia and her background. She was born in the UK of Jamaican and German parentage, and she grew up in Hong Kong, Zimbabwe, Cyprus, and the UK. She studied literature at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland and got her MFA at Transart Institute in Berlin and New York. Sonia is a McDowell Fellow and has been recognized by the Premio Ora Prize, New York Art Slant Showcase for Sculpture, and the Neo Art Prize. And you could learn more about her at her website, Barrett, it's SEBARRETT.com. We were so thrilled to work with you, Sonia, and to have your expertise and wonderful accomplishments that you bring to this exhibition. Just to give a little bit of background on the show itself, this was an open call to artists, and we published this opportunity far and wide on our website, in email, and social media. And we had 24 artists who applied to be part of the show, of which you accepted 21. And these artists came from locations nearby in New Jersey and New York, but also from Florida, from Georgia, Maryland, and Oregon. So we had quite a wonderful national attention that was brought to this show. In addition, it was featured as part of the National Day of Racial Healing as being a featured event. So with that, we'd love to hear more from you about your perspective on the show, about the theme of the show, Manifesting Beloved Community, and about how you saw the work. It was very interesting, the different categories and themes that you saw emerge. So if you could talk to us a little bit about that as well.
Okay, well, thank you so much for inviting me to do this. It was really an honor, and it was wonderful to see so many different practices, both locally and nationally. And while I was very interested in the idea of manifesting beloved community, it was really interesting to see the kind of submissions that arose out of that. And I started to see some trends, and so that's why I started to group the works together. And I had grouped into one section. I had included everyone that we could see now, and all the people that were just talking about the past, what is now and what is here. And what was really interesting in the call was like kind of a vision, like there was a request for kind of a vision of what community could be, or how can we manifest beloved community. There were a lot of entrants which were very much focused on what community has been in the past, or where we are now. And I thought it was still really important to group and share these works, because if we're really so rooted in now and the past, that's also saying something for, I think, for many members of the arts community. It's difficult to move beyond where we are now, and maybe now it's so important that we have to focus on that. So there was a whole group of works that were really focusing on the past and now, and then there was another group of works that were really without any people in them at all. And I thought that was really interesting, because for me, community is primarily about groups of people. But there was quite a contribution of works which didn't actually have any individuals in them, and it was kind of really interesting to look at that group as well. And I think the third really critical group was thinking about in terms of altered mental states. So like how we can go forward in spite of the status quo, and that is to go to a different place mentally. And there were like a couple of works that really were dealing with how do we like split our heads open and go to a different place and be in different places. But very interesting for me was that there was like some works which were actually kind of giving us tools to do that in the forms of like kind of blankets and like cocooning ourselves, and also examining altered mental states such as in running and moving.
Sonia, I was really very amazed at the way you were able to categorize and tie the work together thematically, and your way of looking at different aspects of what it meant to manifest a beloved community, not just in terms of what the end result would be, but where we are and how we would get there. Well, one of the interesting categories, there was a lot of portraiture, which really surprised me. How did you view that, and the artist statements, which actually amplified some of the work?
So for the portraiture, I thought it was very interesting that we were like, there was this theme, like I came across one submission and another, and I was like, hang on, this is like the fifth submission. Like it was kind of like rainbow people emerging, like different, like people literally just different colors. And I always thought, there's something happening here because there are so many artists that are reaching for this. Why is that, and what could it mean? And so I thought it would be helpful to group them, and just so that, you know, as an audience member could come across all these different, like these rainbow people, and people were talking in terms of, oh, it's a multi colors equals multicultural, or equals multi-faith, and or they were like making all these kind of associations, which seemed to me really strange, but interesting that everyone was reaching for the same thing. So I just thought it would be really interesting to group those and look at that together, and maybe even think a bit more about why do we reach for this metaphor, and what is it that's so that seems so comfortable? Why are we so comfortable thinking about people who are green and blue, and why are we dealing with that particularly now?
So in our conversation, Island added something that was very important that I had not thought of. And so our artists, which Island, you may have mentioned, not only were they geographically diverse, but they were diverse ethnically, religious, in terms of religion, and racially. And Island, would you please share a little bit of something you said about the blue, the significance of blue?
So indigo blue is a particular color which has a very difficult history, as in that it was a color that was harvested by slaves from African diaspora, and there's also this feeling of blue black and the blue boy, and there's like a kind of a literary backstory as well as this particular history to this particular indigo color. But I wasn't sure. I wasn't feeling that was where these works were coming from. But I think it's very interesting in terms of somehow trying to think beyond color in terms of the black is blue black. So can we get to hyper black? But can we when do we push beyond blue black and start going to like orange or green? I because it's like why is this happening right now? And I just think it's interesting. I mean, if the other thing is that if you put blue black in the kind of a rainbow, then you're really missing colorism, which is critically debilitating, I think, in Black communities. As a mixed race person, I'm very aware that there's a difference between my father is what you could describe as blue black, so like he's very dark, and I think that, and for my cousins, were all different shades of black. So this thing is not just it's not a happy place, this rainbow situation with all these shades of things. It has very real consequences. So when we start to push it to, indigo, and then it goes to turquoise, what are we missing there, and how, there's a weight that happens with all that seems to maybe not be in these other places. But I just think it's something that's just, I wanted to put them all together just to see these together, and really maybe just start thinking about that, because there were a lot of Asian, there were some Asian influences as well, and then blue black has another meaning outside of an African context. So it was very interesting to see, to just group these together, to then to have to unpick them again. I thought that was an interesting place for the viewer maybe to be.
Thank you. Yes, and I think you touched on that too, that we do have a South Asian community here in West Windsor, which is very strong, and several of the pieces were created by artists whose backgrounds are from that part of the world, and so they have their own cultural relationships to using color blue as skin color in artwork and depicting different figures from their religions and their stories. So I think that was an influence as well. And then I loved the other idea that you brought to us, which was to create an interactive piece for the show and to set up a space for people to contribute their own portraits. Do you want to say something about that?
Well, I think it's so, it's wonderful to have an exhibition, which is also an invitation. And because what was curated in a very inclusive way, I thought it would be wonderful to extend that. And as a result of seeing, I wondered, after having seen all these kind of rainbow, these rainbow people, what would people then do? What would they do? Or this space with no people, and then this space with lots of colors, and then depictions of altered mental spaces. What would you then, if you were given straight away after seeing all this the opportunity to portray yourself, what colors would you reach for? How would you do that? And I just think that's a really interesting space. Then I think that sometimes when we make exhibitions, we don't allow enough place for repositioning. So I think that there's always this opportunity that once you've had something, you've taken something, and there's an opportunity to process and to create again. So I would imagine that maybe the way you might work before you see other works might be different afterwards. And you might begin to see the holes or the spaces in between with these groups. Well, no one did this, what could I do now in this where the gaps become more evident? And yeah, that was the kind of invitation I thought would be really exciting to offer.
Well, we were excited to offer it as well, and people have taken up the opportunity, and we have some portraits hanging in the gallery. So thank you for adding that dimension. And I think the prompt which you had given, which we share with them, is to depict yourself either within or beyond race.
Yeah,
Sonia, we're coming close to a close, and as we do, I share Island's feeling that we felt very blessed to have you as the juror for the show, and you were extremely thorough. Your thoughtfulness, the way you conceptualized it, excited us even more. My last question, and I'll ask Island to close it. My last question for you has to do with the work that you thought envisioned of a world in the future. I think you categorized some of the work in that way. And I ask you about that because we are considering doing this project again, this exact same theme, because we think that it's a challenge that should be ongoing. And I think you've just set a standard for us on how broadly we can think about that. But what do you think about us continuing it? And talk to me a little bit about that category of envisioning the future.
I think it's really exciting to ask people to vision. I mean, the thing is though, with artists don't have all the answers. But I think sometimes there's something very valuable in the visual, in that if you can see it, maybe you can be it, you know? Like, and without a vision, it's hard to know, like, what would that amazing community space look like? Where would we meet? How would we meet? How could we be together? You know, I mean, without centralizing commerce, for example, what might that look like? And I think that's the kind of thing that's exciting to give people as something to think about. And it doesn't mean that artists have to do that on their own. It's not thinking of it on their own, but it's maybe something they can begin to vision, even together as a group. Yeah, I'm very much a fan of collective working and collectives, and yeah, it's just a call to trying to see something else and communicate that visually. I think that's always an exciting proposition.
And as you point out, to see, I wish you could be there, because I know you haven't seen you're across the pond, and so you haven't seen the work collectively, but it's a wonderful show, and it in and of itself is, for me, feels like a movement towards a beloved community where
That's
all
wonderful.
of these ideas come together and all of these visions. I'll let Island please close us out.
That's so interesting, Ronald, because I was thinking similarly that during the opening reception, when we had many of the artists there in person and we had others online contributing, we sort of had a hybrid style of reception, and we gave all the artists who were present the opportunity to speak about their works. And it was through that conversation that evolved, during the event, where I felt like we got the closest to touching the concept, because that's really what we did. We created a space for people to come together as individuals and share their thoughts and feelings and experiences and to be together. And I heard from several of them how much they appreciated just being able to be a part of that specific, opportunity and moment. So I think in that way, that was the most successful moment we had with this show. And I love this idea of bringing artists together to envision it, perhaps rather than discrete works. We might consider a way to have the artists work together to create the exhibition. Just a thought. But thank you for, yeah.
I was thinking, and what we probably should do before we close is, Sonia, tell us a little bit about what you're doing and about your work before you go. We know you're busy.
What am I doing? At the moment, I'm doing a commissioned work for Windrush, which is
Really?
one of the landing of a substantial part of the Black community, not the very first, but a contribution to the Black community in the UK. And I've just become a fellow at Yale for artistic practice and race. And I'm going to start about 3 months of research there. I'm going to be doing that. And then I have a solo show coming up in London regarding the Diaspora Pavilion with International Curators Forum, and I'm hoping to create a new work out of the Yale research this year, which will be a continuation of either the map works or the clouds. I'm not sure yet. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, and it's all very exciting, and I'm very honored to be able to do these projects at the moment.
Well, hopefully one day we'll get you here, and not only at the West Windsor Arts Council, but at the Princeton Art Museum, which is redesigning and probably has a space waiting for you.
Well, that would be wonderful. I would love to do that, and it would be wonderful to pick up and work with some of the people who submitted as well. I would love that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sonia, for being a part of this show and giving us your time and your thought. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that.